I think it's both, right? Like I'm kind of scanning the environment I'm in, and when I see a student maybe where I'm like, oh my God, you have all the raw elements, but no one's really kind of helping guide you in a critical way. How can I do that? But I think it's also students seek us out, but we have to make ourselves available, So like I had a really great lesson last year when I came into CSA where I came in, our director then went on leave, and it was just kind of chaotic, and like life just felt super stressful. And I was meeting with the students that worked in our office and asking them, just kind of like, if you were me, what would you focus on? Being new, because I thought it was a really interesting thing to hear from students. And one student that I'll never forget was like, we think we like you. Like, we think you care about us. We think you're like legitimately doing things to try and support us. And yet we never see you because you're always at all these meetings. And it was like a really kind of slap in the face of like, I was trying to kind of hold the roof up and covering everything I could, but I was going to other places for those meetings. And so I learned one little thing of like, have people come to my space when they meet with me. And then those moments I was free, I started bringing my laptop from home, and I would sit at like our community table downstairs and just be in that student space. So students felt like I was there and I was accessible for them, So I think as mentors, we need to actually be thinking, are we putting ourselves in a space where someone will want to come to us? And then it's also being critical about, okay, that student might be able to use some support. Let me intentionally reach out to them and kind of do that cura personalis, or that one-on-one care of the person, to make sure they know that I'm there for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the easiest way that I put it out there is CSA, we hope to be kind of the student hub for service, justice, advocacy opportunities on campus. And so it's really connecting with students wherever they're at in their journey, whether they're deeply immersed in certain justice or advocacy issues and want to find a home, that we kind of provide that space for them. We provide that home. I think when you work against injustice, it gets very exhausting. And so to be surrounded by people who also care and who also are like, keep up this fight, it's good. It's like a refueling space for those students. But I think it's also for those students who oftentimes come in and who are like, I've never really done anything in this world, but I've had an inkling to, and I don't know where to start. And we're like, come, we've got you. So it's alternative breaks programs, it's community-based learning, it's the service orgs, it's all these different things. But really I always tell students, like, if you care or even think you care about anything to do with service, justice, or advocacy, come into this space and let's see how we can help you out. It's a couple things. I mean, the biggest thing I think of is curiosity. So I think when we do travel right, we kind of leave with more questions than answers, which people say all the time, right? But what does that actually mean? To me, that's not just like the ins and outs and intricacy questions. It's having kind of this deeper curiosity of like, what did I see there? And why is this way? Or wow, how did this become possible? And I think you can't help when you have those experiences abroad and you're traveling to bring that kind of ignited curiosity home. So I think one thing I would hope that I bring to my work is I have like a real curiosity about the students I work with. Like, I want to know who you are. I want to know where you come from and what that means to you. This will sound really cheesy, but like when you're having that rough day and you connect with a student who you've got a great connection with or who you're working with, and you kind of see the day through a different angle from someone who maybe has a better day, like I find myself oftentimes being surprised by how much that happens, where it's like, oh, I was having a really crappy day, and then I encountered this person and I heard what's going on in their day, and like it just made it a little bit better for me, if that makes sense. Yeah, so it's funny, I always tell people, I found LMU by accident. Like I was in high school, I got in trouble in a stats class because I was trying to like have a political debate with my professor. That's just who I was as a high school student. And he had had enough. He gave me a detention. I had to report that afternoon. And near the end of it, he just kind of frustratingly was like, I hope to God you go to a Jesuit university, because I don't know who else can like put up with you this way. And I had no idea what that meant. So I was like, how offended should I be or not be? And as I looked it up, as somebody who was Catholic but was still kind of very much seeking meaning in that identity, what I read about Jesuit philosophy really excited me, right? When I read those ideas of consolation and desolation, and how it's not just kind of like what makes you feel happy or what makes you feel unhappy, but really kind of drawing you closer to something more meaningful. I think it's like making them familiar with like, what does it mean to be at a mission-based university, right? I don't know if you came here because it's Jesuit or not, but I know the fact that this place has Jesuit traditions in it can be really meaningful to you seeking out a greater sense of meaning and purpose in your life. And so it's holding people to that. It's kind of exposing them to it where possible. So when I'm with a student saying, hey, do you know about this? And then something we've been trying to do is just connect even more with like the Ignatian Solidarity Network as an office, and saying the work that this umbrella social justice group for the entire Jesuit kind of ethos in the US is doing is worthwhile for us to connect with. So for me, when we founded Magis, I always tell students like, it actually came from a really frustrated space. I really struggled to connect to this place. And so it was kind of in one of those moments of, do I continue to struggle? Do I leave the university? What do I do? That I met this guy who would become one of my best friends, who was having a similar experience and was like, I also am struggling here. And like, I was so high performing in high school. And so he was like, well, if we're not seeing what would bring us life, why don't we create it? Like, don't we have that responsibility? And I laughed, thinking he was joking, and he's like, I'm dead serious, let's create our own service org. And so we kind of got to do that, right? So it was hard, it was difficult. I always say, like, one lesson I learned about myself was I think I was really good in the founding part, and then the actual management of that organization at that time in my life, I wasn't so great at, And so like, I try and work with students to kind of go through a reflective process of, is there a need for what you're creating? Because I think sometimes we just like, oh, well, I'll just create this. And it's like, well, wait, that's duplicating something that's already out there and is good. Like, is there a way to go into that space and make it better and improve it, right? Do you want to be an entrepreneur, like inside the org, or do you want to be an entrepreneur and creating your own thing? And then it's just kind of working students through the like, okay, what's the why, what's the how, etc., and then journeying with them along kind of that design piece. So I think most of my work now is really kind of supporting staff that are supporting students doing that. I think one thing I push is like, from a societal perspective, I think we've set you all up in a really unfair space, right? I mean, from the moment you're practically in middle school, you're already being asked, what are you going to be doing to make sure you're college ready? What are you going to be doing to make sure you go to the ideal college and this and that? And so I think we have this notion of success that's really problematic because we've set it up to be this high aspirational thing where oftentimes one of two things can happen. You actually reach that success. You get your dream job, you get into the law school that you thought you needed to go to, and you reach that success and you find yourself deeply unsatisfied. And then what? Or we set this up so high where people can't reach it and then they feel like a failure before they ever got out of the gates. So I think one thing I try and do is kind of redefine success for people and say like, everyone has their own definition and you think about what makes sense for you.